I've been playing video games pretty much my whole life. It's the one thing that I don't think I'll ever get tired of. Every year of my life, more and more incredible experiences come out that allow me to experience adventures I could almost never have dreamed of. Every single year has that one game that has made a major impact on me, not just as a player, but a human. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is my favourite of 2010, Just Cause 3 is my favourite of 2015, and Breath of the Wild is not only my favourite of 2017, but my favourite of all time. I care for this game on a scale that's too impossible to put into words. I've gone over 8 years since its release, and not a single experience has ever topped the gravity of the original playthrough. What was initially just pure excitement for the release of the Nintendo Switch quickly became anticipation for what was seemingly looking like the most vast game ever created. And this game isn't just a game to me now, it's something more. So let's talk about Breath of the Wild. Up until 2017, I hadn't actually completed a single game in this long-running franchise. The only one I'd ever spent a decent amount of time with was the Wind Waker remake for Wii U. I was and still am a Mario platforming kid through and through. However, something about Breath of the Wild's mysterious development drew me into its world before even having the chance to understand it. The very early trailer showcased in 2014 was my first glimpse into this world that Nintendo was creating. Seeing that open, lush greenery quickly transform into a chaotic battleground with a foreboding, spider-like creature attacking a now redesigned Link immediately got my 10-year-old brain invested. The slow-motion jump from the horse as what we later knew to be an ancient arrow then shot at the enemy was a perfect way to give the fans a small idea of what this game would later become. This being followed up by the jaw-dropping demo footage showcasing an unexplored wilderness that seemed anything but Zelda-like in its gameplay design was all I needed to gain even more excitement. And so I waited and waited and waited for another year until we finally got that elusive title drop. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. After anticipating a late 2016 release for the Wii U, I was quickly shut down after the October announcement of a brand new console, which had even more footage of the game on a new handheld system. And best believe when that 2017 trailer dropped, I could not contain myself any longer. I was desperate for March 3rd. It couldn't come any sooner. Despite what felt like a lifelong wait, Breath of the Wild came out at the perfect time for me. I had started to become bored of the games I'd been playing the previous year, as I was going through my phase of really getting into shooter games like Call of Duty and Battlefield, as well as Titanfall, which I'll always have a soft spot for. But playing these games never invited me into a world I could entirely delve myself into. They were simply quick dopamine rushes of non-stop action that certainly were popular for a reason, but had never stuck with me the same way other games had done up to that point. As mentioned previously, Just Cause 3 was my favourite game of 2015, and I think it's an excellent initial look into how I wanted my games to be going forward. Just Cause 3 has a story mode, but it's predominantly known for its colossal world you could paraglide and wingsuit through. I spent 90% of my time with it just travelling from one territory to another, taking over the small government-controlled settlements until I got the entire map to turn blue in my favour. I did that over and over again and have never even finished the story of Just Cause 3 because I just had so much fun with the smaller aspects of the game. And I believe this is what led Breath of the Wild to have a more profound impact on me compared to games I'd become used to. A non-linear mountainous adventure across a diminished wasteland still enveloped in serenity was exactly the type of experience I both wanted and needed. I'll be the first to admit that my memory is quite foggy. Whether that's down to just a lack of brain power or the abundance of brain rot that I've consumed, I can't say I remember a lot of my childhood in great detail. There's almost no games, movies, or TV shows that I can explicitly recall memories from. But then there's Breath of the Wild. I don't entirely know why, but this game enamored me quicker than anything I'd ever played up until that point. The opening cutscene of Link awaking in a gloomy shrine with nothing to him was immediately compelling from the get-go. That opening walkout onto the Great Plateau is a moment I can never forget. The camera panning out as the main theme swoops in instantly sucks the player into its atmosphere, readying you for the adventure you're about to begin. It's arguably my favourite title drop of any game I've ever played, and I think it may only be topped by its sequel, which we'll talk about another time. That initial playthrough of Breath of the Wild remains the dearest experience with a game I've ever had. From what I can remember, it took me about 10 days of non-stop playing to finally finish it, ending off my journey with roughly 65 hours of playtime, which at the time was my longest playthrough of a game I'd ever done, showing just how obsessed I was with it. I neglected Xbox parties with friends to play this game, I put off schoolwork just so I could paraglide across mountains for no reason. I even had what I believe to be my first proper experience of ignoring basic needs down to just how captivated I was. Putting off eating and hydrating is of course never a good thing, but it's something we've all dealt with through this form of art, and this game just so happened to be my first experience with that. I can recall my first hour off the Great Plateau nearly perfectly. I did what most players did and began travelling towards the dueling peaks to the east, only to come across a guy standing on the bridge along the way. I began speaking to him and he informed me of how dangerous Hyrule had been the past 100 years. The dialogue played while I had an immense environmental showcase before my eyes, and it led to me wandering aimlessly across the centre of the map, just fighting random enemies and collecting brand new items, completely forgetting my initial goal of reaching Kakariko Village. This was what I wanted. All this time I wanted a game to make me forget I was even playing it. Not through boredom or a lack of desire to pursue it, but down to its sheer grasp on my consciousness. It must have taken me over 10 hours to reach Zora's Domain, which is widely considered the first dungeon most players will tackle on their journey. Before I even had any good weapons or any memories unlocked to understand the story, I had spent an obsessive amount of time doing tasks that were inconsequential to the main story. This element of discovery the game gives the player always makes each playthrough unique to the last. You might finish one of them with 45 shrines done, the Master Sword, and 8 of the memories. Another might end with 78 shrines done, no Master Sword but all 12 of the memories. Breath of the Wild doesn't care about itself in the sense that it has no desire to give you all its content unless you directly seek it out for yourself. From the moment you gain access to the paraglider, Hyrule becomes a limitless playground to explore at whatever pace you deem necessary. Most players, myself included, would have certainly directed a majority of their attention to completing the 4 Divine Beasts, as they are a quest that consistently shows itself to the player by having at least one Divine Beast visible to you from most areas of the map. And this, coupled with the abundance of shrines found in every corner of the map, means you'll always have some kind of objective to follow at any given point. And that early 2017 playthrough of the game left me with more to do than I ever realised, despite 65 hours seeming like more than enough time to spend with it. But even after you finish the main story, you always feel like there's more to offer, and you venture back into the world to uncover even more details you've probably missed. Since 2017, I've replayed Breath of the Wild nearly every single year. Most of those times were merely simple runs through the main story with a hint of exploration sprinkled in, rarely clocking in over 30 hours. My favourite of those latter runs was the time I did a 10-part streaming series of it back in 2020 during COVID, where I spent nearly 5 hours a day replaying my favourite game alongside a small yet dedicated group of viewers that gave me the confidence to continue streaming and branch out into other games, because at the time I was mostly focused on Animal Crossing. But the last time I'd ever given it a go was weeks before Tears of the Kingdom released, which I spent an even more obsessive number of hours on. But thanks to the Nintendo Switch 2, Breath of the Wild received a newly enhanced version that finally fixed my core issue with the original. For the longest time, I'd only gotten to experience the game in more than 30 FPS through those RTX 4090 ray tracing 4K 120fps Breath of the Wild footage videos, so you can pretty clearly tell that I immediately upgraded my online subscription so I could get the new updates for the game. And so, after 2 years of this game laying dormant in my Switch library, I let go of my Mario Kart World compulsion and started a brand new save file. This was the most important run of the game I've ever done. Not because I'd done something mind-blowing that revolutionised my already clear delusion with the game, but because I finally felt like I understood everything this game has to say. What made those play sessions in 2017 to 2021 feel so fresh and exciting to me was based on two things: exploration and goals. And the music too, but we'll get to that soon. A lot of my time in those sessions was spent purely just advancing through Hyrule and taking in the world around me. However, this was also coupled mostly by my desire to complete a lot of the main story early on, so I could spend the latter period of my playthrough gathering weapons, finishing shrines, and occasionally doing side quests. I wasn't at all focused on taking in the world in a way I had done during my first time with the game, and looking back at this has led to me feeling a slight resentment of myself. Whilst I obviously would have prioritised the more quote-unquote fun elements of the game, as I was young and desired constant attention from whatever I was playing, I do look back and wonder what I could have done differently in those adventures to perhaps see the game in a light I do today. Because this 2025 playthrough with the game took goals out of the experience and replaced it with emotion. In many ways, I can be considered a crybaby of sorts. I'd like to say as humbly as I can that I'm very in touch with my emotions of myself and others, and therefore have a deep emotional response to many things that are meaningful to me as a person. Much of my own life experience in the past 8 years has dramatically changed how I interact with the life I have at my disposal. I've been through a great deal of challenges and traumatic experiences that have moulded me into who I am today, and these moments in my life, good or bad, also go on to influence the way I interact with the individual things in my life, in this case being Breath of the Wild. Something that I wanted to re-experience with this game was the bodily reaction I'd received during a variety of moments that transpired in the game. Those moments of climbing atop the many towers scattered across Hyrule, or those sighs of relief upon defeating a tough group of enemies, these minuscule parts of an otherwise gargantuan game world were no longer random moments without meaning. They were part of a much bigger picture that I was beginning to unravel 8 years later. There are of course some moments of the game that can't go unnoticed. Pulling off your first ever flurry rush, wielding the Master Sword for the first time, and even finding the Hyrule Shield within the depths of Hyrule Castle. These three certainly stand out as moments I'll always remember from the beginning. But these are also still pretty substantial moments in anyone's playthrough. What I cared more about this time were the smaller things that make Breath of the Wild the timeless masterpiece it is. There's so much on the outside of this game that seems redundant to the untrained eye. As is the case with most modern open world adventures, the expectation to fill your game with as much content as you can quickly leads to worlds that get oppressive to players sinking their head into it. It's not a surprise that when you really sit down and think about it, many of the best open world games out there aren't the mission-filled, heavily overexpanded experiences most people try and seek out, but instead it's the games that have you feeling actively contained by its most vacant moments. The aimless observation of Elden Ring's lands between, the isolating beauty of Minecraft's endless chunks, the serenity of Forza Horizon 4's Mexico. These are the worlds that stick with me more than any other, and Breath of the Wild is no different in that regard. I made the decision to do this playthrough with no HUD elements turned on, and this was just the first thing that I did that really opened up a new perspective of the game for me. Without the minimap and weather radar to assist me, every second of playtime was spent studying the world more than I'd ever done before. It became a significantly harder experience knowing that I couldn't prepare for such an important mechanic the game has, leading to many times where I'd be close to reaching the peak of a climb just to end up falling due to rain and losing my stamina. And the lack of minimap also got me to venture to parts of the map I realised I'd never been before. I veered off the predicted path more than I ever have, and I loved delving into every minute area of Hyrule that had been seemingly unexplored by me up until this point. Every single region on the map had a place I'd never seen before, which to me was crazy to even quantify considering the sheer amount of time I'd already put into this game. This eager anticipation for the next important area was additionally what led to me choosing to find all 120 shrines in this game, which I had never done before. There were at least 20 shrines in this journey that I had never done before, which meant that every few hours I was guaranteed to be presented with some form of new content. I'm not going to act like every shrine was a masterpiece, because some were just flat out shit, but I still found joy in completing quests and objectives to collect all of them and finally have a full health bar for the first time in 8 years. And yet, despite this, for a lot of the game, all I did was just pursue the world in search of nothing. I didn't feel any obligations to complete every quest and just leave it at that. Most of the enjoyment with this playthrough came from the seemingly mundane tasks. Stumbling upon Korok seeds while heading for the iconic labyrinth shrines added an extra layer of excitement without having it be required or suggested to me. It was just because I found them and decided that it was worth my time. I adored riding my horse around Hyrule more so than ever before too, bringing them to as many places as I possibly could. My first horse was aptly named Sex, before I stumbled upon a beautiful black stallion that became my main steed for the remainder of my journey. I grew an attachment to my horse for the first time ever, because I felt like I had to rely on them in a lot of situations as an optimal escape strategy. I named my horse Vanisher. He's my favourite horse I've ever owned. Despite all these inclusions, none of them would matter if they weren't accompanied by my favourite soundtrack of all time. There's something about Breath of the Wild's gentle and decayed piano-focused soundtrack that has captivated me like no other. Walking through a once populated field now devoid of life with faint piano keys whisking in at the seemingly perfect moment will never be a feeling I'll get tired of. Songs like Field, The Temple of Time, Wasteland, Champion Shrine, and so on, coupled with the tranquil melodies of the grass swaying in the wind or the birds chirping on a clear morning, envelops you in this freeing yet also devastating feeling of mourning as you come to understand the dire state of the land you're in. Whilst listening to a track like Atino Village, I feel warm and cozy in a secluded little town that is filled with culture and heritage unlike that of any other village in Hyrule. It makes me want to settle down in its location in the valley between two of the highest peaks in the game. There's multiple songs that do an excellent job at just keeping the player happy. It's almost always in a built up and populated environment because they're the places where the families living today are thankful for the work done by their ancestors during the events of 100 years past. But once you step out of your comfort zones and confront the menacing world around you, the tone suddenly shifts once again. It's still peaceful, but not in the same way. I can't tell you how much time this game has given me to process my emotions simply by walking around and listening to those faint but all-encompassing piano keys. This soundtrack really has done a lot for me, to the point where it's truly hard to quantify. I want you all to experience that feeling too, because it's something that I find to be quite remarkable. The story of Breath of the Wild starts 10,000 years before the events of the game. The land of Hyrule has become technologically advanced with the legions of guardians and the 4 divine beasts they had created. These beasts were controlled by 4 individuals who each had their own exceptional skills, soon to be known as the Champions. After Ganon's imminent return to the kingdom, the princess and the hero fought alongside the Champions to seal away the beast for the next 9,900 years, where he later returned in full force. Before this threat arose, King Rome and the kingdom began excavating the land, to which they found the now ancient technology which had been foretold in the legends. The king, following his path, found the next 4 champions to pilot the divine beast once again in preparation for the soon-to-come onslaught against Ganon. They, alongside Link, were placed under the command of Princess Zelda, who, as shown through the memories scattered across the game world, did not have it easy. In the first chronological memory, Zelda conducts a ceremony to appoint Link as her knight, but she seems very hesitant to let it happen, which the champions all observe. At this moment, Zelda knows that she will be seen as weaker due to the knight being entrusted to protect her instead of herself, and simultaneously, she feels a sense of jealousy over Link, who has been able to fulfill his destiny as the hero, whereas her fate remains uncertain. You can really tell in the tone of her voice that she can't help but feel a clear resentment over Link, no matter how much she values his protection.
Seals the darkness. You have shown unflinching bravery and skill in the face of darkness and adversity, and have proven yourself worthy of the blessings of the goddess Hylia.
Then, on their trek to Goron City, we get our first glimpse at Zelda's honest feelings about herself and about Link. Going from energetic and lively when discussing the fascination of the Divine Beast, to then once again feeling jealous over Link's unmistaken destiny. And this only develops further as in a later memory, Zelda lashes out at Link for interrupting her during a moment of comfort and intrigue, as she has to face the consequences of her royal duties even if her heart is with researching the ancient technology around Hyrule. But even with her seemingly arrogant attitude, it's moments like the Divine Beast Varnaburis memory that really give a realistic glimpse into the stress Zelda feels. She may be frustrated at her lack of power compared to the hero, but you can tell how drained she is from all the effort she's been putting into herself to try and harness whatever she can. Moments like this in the story have really impacted me differently now that I'm approaching 20. These subtle glimpses at her personality once came across as mean-spirited, whereas now I can relate to it personally and have full awareness of how tiring that feeling of grief and anger is. That feeling of knowing you're worth something more, yet you're unable to figure out what steps you must take to see that worth within yourself, is a deeply poetic part of the story that as a kid I would have had no idea about. The moment in which I believe Zelda's mindset changes is when she's saved by Link during a surprise Yiga clan attack. There's no words exchanged, no overwhelming screams of terror, just deep breathing atop a soft piano melody as she gently glances up at Link, knowing in that moment that regardless of how enraged she is, she can truly depend on Link and see him as a human rather than just a shield and sword. And this next cutscene has also gained some symbolic meaning to me too. Despite this probably being my sexual awakening, the introduction of the Silent Princess flower is also a metaphor for Zelda's fate, which we'll touch on soon. There's a touching yet depressing follow-up to this at the Spring of Power. Hoping once again that praying will awaken the power within her, she expresses her doubt and complete turmoil over the situation she's been unwillingly put through. The comments from her father, the loss of her mother, and the inevitability of an impending doom reaching closer to her by the day, she can't help but feel hard done by during this low point in the story. And the cinematography of the scene also exemplifies this feeling further. Link being shown isolated and facing away from the person he's sworn to protect not only gains the hero a sense of respect from the player, but is also a deliberate choice by the developers to shut Zelda away from the outside world during a time of supposed peace. The constant cuts between showing her alone and her alongside the goddess Hylia statue is independently telling the player that Zelda is still far from her destiny. This all leads to her 17th birthday, in which she returns from the final spring, still without her power. As the champions all express consolation over her failure, Ganon makes his untimely return. It's a dramatically ironic moment for us. We knew this would happen at some point. There was never going to be a happy ending to this. It was called a calamity for a reason, and the person to take the most impact over this dire situation is once again Princess Zelda. In what is my favourite cutscene of the whole game, Zelda personifies the overwhelming emotions of the entirety of her kingdom. Her destiny, which was expected from her entire life, never came, and she can't help but blame herself for the sudden demise of the whole kingdom.
How did it come to this? The divine beasts, the guardians, they've all turned against us. It was Calamity Ganon. It turned them all against us. And everyone, Mifa, Urbosa, Rivali and Daruk, they're all trapped inside those things. It's all my fault. Our only hope for defeating Ganon is lost, all because I couldn't harness this cursed power. Everything I've done up until now, it was all for nothing. So I really am just a failure. All my friends, the entire kingdom, my father most of all. I tried and I failed them all. I left them all to die.
She can't go on any further. At this point, all hope for her is lost. Until it isn't. For her whole life, this tucked away power she should possess never came to her. She tried continuously for years to gain any ounce of it she could. She prayed every day hoping for change. She researched all she could and she kept fighting for the safety of her kingdom until suddenly it awoke.
Link, save yourself. Go. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Run. Was that the power? Huh? No. Link, get up. You're going to be just fine.
And even with Link's quick descent to the ground as she holds him, begging for him to keep going, she finally finds hope through the one thing she's been most resentful about the whole time. The piece of equipment that made Link the hero. The sword that seals the darkness.
The sword. So he can still be saved?
Princess!
In this turn of events, it is Zelda to protect Link and save him from the torment he suffered during this as well. Without any final words, we know that Link kept fighting until his final breath, showcasing his unwavering commitment to both himself and Zelda, regardless of his imminent death. It's a memory that really sticks with me now more than ever. This entire cutscene is a symbol of overcoming tragedy, a symbol of fighting until the end, and a symbol of community. Zelda gained her power at the moment she selflessly stood between Link and the Guardian chasing them. It's a representation of how love and appreciation for others can lead to positive karma. But she didn't need to stand between them. She had every opportunity to run, but she still fought to at least try and save someone who she now cared for deeper than anybody else. Witnessing this now after 8 years with the game has got me to question a lot about myself and a lot about life as a whole. Now as an adult, I've come to fully understand the deeper meaning behind what this game has to say. It reminded me how special the feeling of romantic and platonic love is. It got me to relive past experiences and try to understand them from a more realistic perspective, visualizing and coming to terms with a lot of the trauma I've faced in my own life. I want to keep learning that accepting pain is a constant fight that will always be conquered eventually, and without pain and struggle, what makes those moments of peace and joy truly feel remarkable? There's always something good around every corner. You're always going to overcome your greatest challenges if you just keep on pursuing the greatness that you can all achieve. Breath of the Wild taught me more about myself than I could have ever expected, and it's going to keep teaching me about growing into the person I want to be. Because without growth, really, who actually am I? There's more to the game that I wish I could have intertwined into the script, but I didn't want to do any more than I thought I'd already done. After beating the game this time around, I finally went ahead and played through both DLCs for the first time as well, and I absolutely loved them both. I did record footage of it all and I'll show some of that now, but it just didn't mesh well with what I'd already written, so I left it out of the main script. That being said though, I've only used it for about 20 minutes, but the Master Cycle Zero is a fucking beast of a concept and I already love it. Nintendo, please make the Legend of Zelda car a real thing because I would buy it immediately. That being said, I just want to say thank you. I know that this is back to the more longer form of videos. I was only planning on making this like a 15-minute video. But, I mean, it's Breath of the Wild. It's my favourite game of all time. Of course, it was going to end up being longer than that. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I feel like I definitely... it's not the best script I've written, I'll be honest. I had a lot of difficulty writing the script. A lot of procrastination, a lot of struggles with like making it the best I thought it could be. But, nonetheless, I hope you enjoy it. And best believe, it may not be the next video... or it may not be anytime soon, but there will be a Tears of the Kingdom follow-up as well. And I'm really looking forward to doing that, because I've not replayed Tears of the Kingdom since it came out. So I'm really anticipating that. But anyway, yeah, thank you for watching once again. I hope you are all having an amazing summer. By the time this comes out, my birthday will probably be... it would be probably within 2 weeks of this coming out, so everyone wish me a happy birthday. Thank you. And, yeah, take care everyone. Thank you Tesco Meal Deal once again for being a member. I will see you all in a bit. Take care guys. Peace.